All right, guys, welcome to the Sunday call. So we'll go over sort of the outlook for the week ahead and then dive into the charts. So this coming week, we'll start off from the economic calendar. You know, Monday's a market holiday for President's Day, as most of you guys know, so no trading on Monday. And then Tuesday, we have the Empire State Manufacturing Index pre-market. It's not really that important. And then President Trump speaking at some point during the day. I don't know if we know the time just yet, so be aware. Obviously, his remarks can move the market. Wednesday, the key event is FOMC meeting minutes at 2 p.m. The meeting minutes are not as significant an event as the actual FOMC events are, but also something to just keep an eye on if you have active positions. And then Thursday we have unemployment claims, the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index, and then Friday we have manufacturing PMI, flash services PMI at 9:45, and then existing home sales, and then Michigan consumer sentiment at 10 a.m. So not as critical of a week in terms of economic events. However, it is a monthly option expiration week, which typically is a choppier week. So just keep in mind, going into next week. Plus, it's a shorter week, so the theta decay or premium decay in weekly options is going to be a lot higher, right? So don't forget that as you start on Tuesday, the you only have four days that week, so it's not like a Monday, right? And so you have to be careful. We'll try to play more next week's contract, so maybe 228, but we'll see how premiums are for the setups we take and let you guys know. So before diving into the charts, as usual, we'll start with the general market, right? So this is SPX or the S&P 500, and this past week, we made new all-time highs, I believe. Let me just double check. We did not actually make new. We very, very got close. But regardless, it was a very strong finish to the week, right? And coming into this week, I mentioned last week, we had this 2 consecutive weeks of Monday gap down action that just got bought back up. So the market has been resilient in the last month or so through all kinds of, bad news that was that it had a negative reaction to initially, but then, the bulls just showed up, right? So you have to listen to the market, right? Coming into this past week, I was actually leaning bearish, right? But you can't you have to be objective and change your opinion, right? And the change in opinion came when we gapped down on Wednesday due to a hot CPI print, right? And we gapped down quite a bit, like more than 1%, but we just there was not even a retest of the opening lows. The bulls just showed up and bought the market right back higher. And then on Thursday we had PPI news, and it was an initial flat reaction, right? So there was this day, but as soon as it got through sort of 60, 75, 60, 80 area, it really started a strong rally. And then the market finally got through 6100, which is a very, very important level, right? It rejected here in December, could not get through, failed here, end of January, could not get through, big wick here, end of January, another one on the 7th of February, so a very important level. And it finally sort of closed through on a weekly basis here. So going into this week, I think there's no reason to be bearish here, right? Market is pretty much at the all-time highs. It has spent almost 4 months, 3 to 4 months, really sideways. So theoretically has a lot of energy built up for the next leg higher, right? And the question is, what is the catalyst for the next leg higher? It's not very clear to me yet, but we do have all of these earnings out of the way for the most part, and we have a market that is trading at pretty much the all-time high, about to break a significant level where it has spent a lot of time. So, the easy trade is to the upside, and if it does indeed break out, I think SPX can run, about 150, 200 points by mid-March, so get us to about close to 6,300. But yeah, so I think we don't really play SPY, SPX, QQ too much, but I think over this 6130 area, you can probably take calls. I personally prefer to trade SPY for swings because SPX is just so expensive, right? It's hard to touch contracts that are not, that are maybe beyond 1 day out. So I would take SPY if you like the idea. Maybe if we go to SPY over 610, you could take the 620 calls a couple weeks out. I think that would be a good trade. Moving on to the tech index or NASDAQ QQQ. QQQ as well is right back near the all-time highs, right? So I had mentioned the last few weeks QQQ was showing some sort of relative strength because in January it had not made a new high, but SPX had. But now it seems like it's very much caught up, right? These last 3 days have been very, very strong for tech. So similar to SPX, I think it's worth taking calls over 539, 540 area. 550 calls a week out could work. But overall, looks very bullish. IWM, still sort of the laggard here. It's really, underperformed for a while, and we took a shot here at 230, which was a pretty strong resistance level. It had got through that day, but then failed right away. We're still in those calls, but obviously not the best start. We have 5 weeks on them, so I'm looking to see if this week it can get back near 230 and ideally close above, and if so, then we have a shot at catching a good trade on that. Dow Jones, we don't really trade this as an index too much, but just to keep an eye on, it's been more sideways in the last 2 weeks or so, but still very much bullish. Looks pretty strong near the highs. Bitcoin, very, very messy. Don't recommend trading this right now, but keeping an eye on this general structure, right? You have 108 at the high end of the range, and then 90 at the low end. I think either way, whichever side breaks, I think will be a good trade. But in this sort of range, you're kind of in no man's land unless you're sort of long-term, believer, in which case it, makes sense to accumulate on pullbacks and consolidations. But for trading reasons, this is too choppy to take any good trades on right now. All right, so those are sort of the indices, and now we'll move on to individual stocks. So starting off with tech stocks, I like Amazon for a dip buy. I mentioned this the last couple of days, and I know some of you are also looking at this. But Amazon, this area near 228, which was a former resistance level, is now acting as support the last few sessions. It's also testing the rising 50-day moving average. Amazon has been on an uptrend for a while now, and so this could be a nice sort of dip buy. Earnings are out of the way. I would probably get either if you want a shorter term swing, maybe 235 calls 2 weeks out, or you could get the 240s for March monthly expiration. But this looks like a nice low risk entry. I would stop out under 225 daily close, because then you would be closing under the 50-day moving average, right? So it's pretty, you have three points here on the downside as your risk, and that's a pretty generous sort of, you're giving the trade some room, in my opinion, to work, and you have about, 10 points on the upside for sure. Microsoft was, on watch for the downside coming into last week, but it sort of on that day that we gapped down on CPI, it had a very, very quick flush at the open to 404, held, and never looked back. So right now, I would just not touch this. I would wait for 400 on the downside because it seems that there are still many, many sort of buyers that are sitting, between 400 to 408. And so I'll just wait. It's been a problematic area to go short, right? It was worth a shot because it's been very weak compared to the market. Like, look at Microsoft, right? It's trading near the lows, while the market's pretty much at the highs. So I think if the market, if it happens that the market has a false breakout to the upside and just like aggressively sells back lower, and you find Microsoft near 400, I think then it's again worth the shot for puts. But for now, I'm just watching this. On the upside, I would wait for around 420 for calls, in which case I think it'll set up for an interesting trade to the upside after holding this range multiple times. Tesla, was very, very weak the last week or two. We didn't really touch this. It was a decent play for puts after the news about possibility of Elon putting in a bid for OpenAI. And then this past few days it's sort of bounced from around 325 back through 350. 362 is a key level, which was the previous high from November. So ideally for the upside, I want to see this close over 362 for a couple of days. If it can close over 362 on the weekly chart, it will set up for 400 again in the coming month or so. But yeah, I'm still sort of watching this. I don't want to jump into like swing calls right yet. I think there are some opportunities to day trade this. Like if it can backtest 350 and hold, you could day trade that for calls. But nothing super A plus for me, to be honest. I think the upside will be a little bit easier over 362, and then I think over 400 it's going to be a lot easier. So I'm just sort of watching this for now. But if you, for example, if you want long term, if you like shares, not a bad place to buy, in my opinion. I actually did alert put sell the other day, and it had a pretty strong pullback, right, from 500 all the way to like 325. And it's it's a stock I don't mind owning at $250. I sold the July I think 17th or whatever the monthly option expiration is that month. The July 250 puts for $10. They're already up like 13% on the sell. So I think I like if you like Tesla, it's not a bad area to sort of scale in for shares. But when it sets up for calls, we'll definitely be in it. Moving on, Baba I covered sort of in the trade recap, but very quickly, Baba it has earnings on Thursday this week. I would wait personally. It has had a huge run in the last few weeks. Not to say it can't run even further, and I actually do think it'll have a really strong year, and it can trade 150 plus. But right now, given how extended it is, I would just personally wait until earnings are out, right? But it's definitely on watch. So right now, you just want to see it hold 120, in my opinion, because it's failed near 120 so many times, like October, and then if you go back last year, January 2022 in June, so lots of very, very hard level, 120, between 120 and 130. So it's key that it holds this area. Futu is another stock we were talking about the last few weeks. It has also had a very strong run. Looks very good. It has earnings coming up in March. I think for this week, if Futu can sort of back test around 120, like maybe 115 to 112, it might be worth a dip buy, but we'll see how it trades. Snow is a stock we played this week. Caught a pretty nice trade on the 200 calls for this upcoming week, but this that was on Thursday. Very nice breakout candle there, but just no follow through, right? I mentioned a few times that this 194 area is very hard. So it just needs to get through that next time, right? So it's very much still in play, this overall setup, right? And has earnings on the week after. So very possible it makes a move on earnings, but if this week it can get back through 194, it's again worth a shot for calls. Moving on to the chip stocks, start with Nvidia. So Nvidia has had a very good last 2 weeks, right? After testing around 113, it has pretty much reclaimed 130, which was sort of a very, very key pivot I mentioned. And now, it closed near the highs of the week, which is very bullish. It has earnings coming up in a week or so. And, I think over 142, it could set up for 150 again. Nvidia 150 is a 150 or 153 is a breakout level, right? So that's a trade that I'm waiting to take. It's failed 3 times over here, so it's a strong trade to the upside. There was a lot of reasons why Nvidia could have, sold off, moved towards 100, but it held up, right, even on the DeepSeek news. So, the stock's telling you that it's probably not done yet. And so if it gets through 150 over the next month, it's a very strong trade. So until then, you can catch day trades worth, 3-4 points. And then now over 130, I'm watching it more closely. But, personally, I'm waiting. As you guys know, I really focus on the, the top setups and go after those hard. But I trade, the regular setups pretty much every day too. But these are the top setups are the ones that excite me the most. So with Nvidia and Tesla, I'm kind of saving my mental capital for the big trades. SMCI is a stock we traded. It was a very, very good move through 38. It closed right near 50 or 48, but very close to 50. So this stock now looks a little bit different, right? After this gap down, it pretty much went from 120 to 17. So, 80%, more than 80% drawdown on the stock, but now it's up, almost 3x from the lows. Had a nice sort of falling wedge pattern that has now broken to the upside. So I think over 50, and again, this very much depends on, the status of their 10K and whatnot, but over 50, if everything's good with the company, this can start back higher, towards 62 and 70. So, worth a watch here this week over 50. TEM mentioned, covered this in depth on the trade recap video earlier, but for this week, you want to see 90. You want to take this high out, and this should run to 100 in the next 2 weeks, in my opinion. So it's gotten a little bit more expensive, right? The premiums, as you would expect, but we'll monitor this closely and let you guys know if there's something interesting. But TEM moves pretty. It can move. So even buying shares is trading it with shares is not a bad idea. So definitely be open-minded to that. A hood has been extremely strong, right? Gapped up on earnings, almost 15% or so. For this week, if it can get through sort of this 66 level, 67, it can, get through 70. So we'll be watching this break to get calls. MSTR, we played this on Friday, right? For this coming week's 400 calls. The premiums reacted really well. This week you want to see 350 and then 357 area break. So it's had a lot of heavy resistance in the last 3 weeks here. If it can break 357, I think it has a pretty good shot to test 382 the same week. So this one's very much on watch. It's been sort of after that exhaustion move higher, really been doing nothing, and the price action is very, very compressed now. So it can be a nice sort of breakout setup if it presents itself. Another name that looks interesting, we covered this last week, was CART. We didn't really play it yet, but still looks good. It has earnings coming up, so it's possible that it runs into it. So we'll take we'll keep this on watch this week, but looks good. Another sort of new IPO that is newer IPO that is trading near the highs now. ACHR, we entered this on Friday. It looks extremely good. This had a big run, right, in October, November, from $3 all the way to 12, so 4x move. Pulled back, has based, sort of surfing this 50-day moving average, and had a really strong candle on Friday. So, ACHR over this 1050 area should retest this high at 12 and a half, and then can possibly continue higher towards 15. So we bought the March 12 calls. So let's see how it acts this week. But if it can get near 12, obviously that swing will pay really well. So this chart looks really, really nice to me. The other stock in the same sector is Joby, but you guys can see, right, Joby doesn't look as good this time around. It's trading below the moving averages. It's not as tight. So ACHR was the play in this case. A few other names we're watching. WSM looks pretty nice. We played this all the way here before earnings. Some of you guys caught I don't even remember, 20x plays, but we've got this a few times. But here again, over 200, it's been very strong. Back tested it twice and held, and now it looks like it wants to retest the all-time high here at 220. So we're watching this to see if we can catch a trade here. A few other names. Airbnb had a very big positive reaction on earnings, and it's sort of trading in the 160s, which it was last at almost a year ago now, right? And Airbnb 170 is a very, very hard resistance level, right? It was here in 2024, and then all the way back in 2022 it failed a few times. So this stock has not really done anything since IPO. So if we go to the monthly chart, right, from 2021, it's just based and based and based. So this year, if it can get through 170, I think it has a shot to testing 200, and then that 214 is a super hard level too. But it's because of the strong sort of reaction on earnings, the stock is black in play. It's definitely back on watch. We've never really alerted it since we started alerting plays, but this is on closer watch now. And then along those lines, in the same sort of travel sector overall, is Expedia, right? It also has a very nice sort of chart. We entered calls on Friday. It moved a little bit, but then didn't look like it was selling back lower, so we let it go. But still very much on watch. I love the setup here over 206, 207, and it can sort of get back to the recent highs there after a strong earnings gap up. Roku had a pretty strong reaction to earnings as well. Roku is not something I want to touch first thing this week, because I just want to see how it digests this earnings reaction first. But Roku's back near 100 after a long time. So it's sort of back on watch. Similar to Airbnb, right? The stock has not done much in the last year, 2 years, but suddenly is looking interesting again because it's, after a huge sort of stage 4 decline from 500, right? It has based for multiple quarters, and now it looks like it can, start a new stage 1 uptrend. So worth keeping an eye on for sure. Net, super strong earnings couple weeks ago. For this week, I'm watching this 177 area. If it can get through there, is a good trade for calls. Uber, struggling with the 80 level the last few days, but I think it's a matter of time before it breaks through. So I think over 80, the 82 calls for 228 are not bad as a short-term swing trade. So have this on watch. DKNGs, I know some of you guys mentioned this earlier. It had a really fantastic move on Friday, right? And really now looks like through 50 looks like there was some serious volume, right? So looks very interesting. Watching to see how it trades early in the week, but this name is a name I haven't traded in a long time, but it's back on watch. It's possible it sort of gets back through or gets back and tests the previous all-time high, which is around 70, I think. Yep, 74. So this is a new one on watch for sure. And then on the downside, I have a couple names that if we sell off, that I want to keep an eye on. One is NOW, which we tried last week. It kind of held near 970, but still very much on watch. Not going to really trade this if the market is strong, but it's always good to have setups on both sides planned going into the week. A couple other ones. One other one was Lulu that I like for the downside. I had a really sharp sell-off on Friday, so I think under this 365 area, it can start filling this gap that it had from the earnings. So that's another good name for the downside as well. But that's about all the setups I'm watching heading into this week. I'll post some charts tomorrow from the Sunday call, and then if we find something additional that's interesting, we'll let you guys know. So have a good rest of your Sunday and Monday as well, since it's a holiday, and we'll catch you guys bright and early on Tuesday.